So I'm a hugger. Y'all gonna have to just hold on for a minute while I hug these people. I was blessed, or maybe cursed, with what they call a phlegmatic demeanor and a dark complexion. So it's very hard to tell when I'm excited or blushing, but I am, at this moment, as my 90-year-old mother would say, tickled pink. And y'all are going to have to pardon me in advance for a long list of thank yous. I was told to talk for 10 minutes, which means I will talk no longer than 7, of which 4 will be thank yous. And of course, we'll be closing with the Sly and the Family Stone sing-along, for which I have allotted a half hour. Margaret, Jim, Val, and everyone else who put this conference together, thank you so much. I am thrilled to be chosen for this honor, and I appreciate all the hard work that has gone into pulling this event off. When I read over the list of previous honorees, I got a little nervous. For once, I got an email announcing that I had won a prize, and it turned out to be the wrong Michael Parker. I came of age in the 1970s, and ever since I have been a tad what we called back in the day paranoid. Though I'm feeling pretty confident at this point in the evening that y'all really did have me in mind. Now I want to just briefly testify in favor of those who have testified in my favor. Elizabeth Hudson is the best magazine editor I have ever worked with. I sent her an email and said I would like to write about an FM converter, and she said, "What is that?" But great, sure. I told her I wanted to write about a field I fell in love with when I was a kid, and she said, "That sounds wonderful." I told her I wanted to write about a fried pie addiction I developed while living in Seattle, and she said, "Okay, Michael, but you do realize that I'm not the editor of Seattle Magazine, don't you?" She sent me up Highway 52 once to write about the identity crisis between Mount Airy and fictional Mayberry, and she found out quickly what my father understood years earlier when I had asked him one summer when I was in college if I might do some reporting for his newspaper. "Look," he said, "you're a mighty good writer as far as I can tell, but I'm not sure you have a natural bent for the factual." Elizabeth and her staff took my disastrous attempt at reportage and turned it into something I'm proud of, and something I learned a lot from. I grew up reading Carl Goethe's State magazine, and while I have a fond spot in my heart for the columns of Billy Arthur and the photographs of Hugh Morton, I don't think I have to point out to anyone in this room how Elizabeth has made our state into a gorgeous, smart publication with a national presence. She is a treasure. Terry Kennedy is, aside from being one of my best friends on the planet and a terrific poet, the hardest working man in the lit biz. His support of all things literary extends far beyond his day job as Associate Director of the MFA program, where I've taught for nearly 25 years, the last 15 or so with Terry at the helm. Terry is our resident visionary. He's knowledgeable about the tradition of the writing program. He's loyal to those who created and shaped it: Bob Watson, Randall Jarrell, Fred Chappell, Peter Taylor, Lee Zacharias, Jim Crow, of course, and Stuart Deschelle. Terry has a sense of what the program was, but he also has a vision of what it can be and a dedication to uphold our national reputation. Despite the relentless budget cuts that we have to face, he is the future of what is, to my admittedly biased mind, one of the most important literary institutions in this state. When Kathy Pourys bought my novel, If You Want Me to Stay, or actually she's claiming now that it was some other novel that I sent her, I don't know anything about that. I had already published 4 books with 4 so-called big New York houses, Charles Scribner's son, William Morrow, and HarperCollins. But it was only after arriving at Algonquin that I felt any semblance of that elusive thing that writers refer to as a career. That's because Kathy and the staff at Algonquin worked so wonderfully together to make what many writers feel is a sometimes bittersweet experience pretty dang sweet. I should say that while I admit to having been disappointed by a publishing experience or two, my general approach has always been to enter into the thing with 0 expectations and to count my blessings that my family on both sides love to procreate, for I have a slew of cousins that might buy a book just to see what crazy, depressing shit I am going on about this time. Other than that, I have no real hopes, and that way, of course, every little thing that comes around is bounty and boon. I can't claim that any book I've published with Algonquin has made them a dime. I keep myself purposely in the dark about such things, but if I had to guess, I would say that I might have cost them a small bundle. But they treat me no differently than they do the woman who hit it big by writing that book about water and also elephants, according to the title. I confess if I were that woman whose book surely paid for the likes of me, I would want to be treated better than me. But Algonquin does not do A-list and B-list. They just do spring and fall list. And I am lucky, so lucky, and grateful to have been included on their lists in the past, and I am ever hopeful that I might be included on their list in the future. Kathy has made my work richer, fuller, and most importantly, more clear. We have a running joke about her tendency toward the literal, which I attribute to where and when she grew up. Anywhere else in the world, a burning river would probably be a metaphor, but in 1970s Cleveland, it was very much a fact. But Kathy, in fact, is a deeply imaginative and nuanced reader, excellent at connecting dramatic action to subtext. Her smart and honest criticism has been invaluable to me over these last dozen years, and I am grateful to you, Kathy Pourys, forever grateful. I want to thank also, I want to say first that I can't stand up here and not give all my thanks and all my love to my daughter Emma, who spent most of her childhood standing in a hallway saying, "Come on, Dad, it's time to go, let's go." While I said, "Just a minute, baby, I'm almost finished with this novella." I want to thank also my brother and my sister-in-law and my friend Jessie for coming. And I really and heartily want to thank all of you. I came up from Texas, and right before I left to fly up here yesterday, my girlfriend, who comes originally from Dinwiddie, Virginia, remember that because that becomes important, asked me where I was going again and why, even though I'd told her several times. I said I was coming home to be honored from this distinguished group of glitterati, and I read her a little from the history of the conference on the North Carolinapedia page, and this is what I read her. Although the group voted to meet again after its initial meeting, it was adamant in wanting neither a formal organization nor an apostrophe in its name. The group's rejection of a bureaucratic structure has remained one of its guiding principles. It has never had a constitution, bylaws, an annual report, or a president. "Oh, okay, I got it," she said. And here is where her roots in the Commonwealth are revealed. You're flying back up there to hang out with a bunch of renegade Tar Heel anarchists who are against even apostrophes. It used to be that the phrase renegade Tar Heel anarchist was a tautology. I was taught at an early age never to mix politics with barbecue, so I will tread lightly on recent political developments in our legislature. and I don't think anyone would care to entertain the opinions of a man who lives part-time in a state where the biggest news of the summer is that a fast food chain called Whataburger has decided to stand up against the open carry law and ban firearms in its, and I quote, restaurants. But at whatever risk, I shall mention the political situation in our state in the context of how much I love North Carolina, how much it has given me as a writer and as a citizen, and how hard it is to watch funding for arts and education dry up and to see our state university system suffer at the hands of a top-heavy bureaucratic structure that acts as if it has never had a constitution, bylaws, an annual report, and if it one day it suits him to pretend so, a president. Here is where you all come in. Every one of you in this room is a champion of the artistic legacy and tradition and excellence of this state that goes back to Charles Chestnut, to Thomas Wolfe. I could go on all night listing writers, but I'll stop here so we can get to our sing-along. But before I do, I would like to tell you about a moment that occurred many years ago when I was a student at Chapel Hill. I had the great fortune of studying with some of North Carolina's finest writers and teachers, Louis Rubin, Max Steele, Lee Smith, Marianne Ginger. But the writer I work most closely with, and with whom I have kept up a 30-plus year conversation, mostly about literature and culture, and sometimes about life, is Daphne Athis, who was honored back in the late 90s by this very group of renegade anarchists. One day I was discussing with Daphne my issues with some woman I was going out with. I don't need for her to do what I do, I said, but I would really like to be able to talk to her about what I'm reading at least. Yeah, said Daphne. I believe that is what we would refer to as civilization. Maybe because I come from Sampson County, the word civilization makes me uneasy. But I took Daphne's point, and my repeating this story tonight has less to do with being able to talk to your partner about what you're reading than what we have come here to do, to have an open and vibrant conversation about literature, art, ideas, and their relationship to real life. Organizations like this one, and the North Carolina Writers Network, and the State Literary and Historical Society, the Arts Council, the North Carolina Humanities Council have never been more important, and our support has never been more crucial. This conference, in particular, is a celebration of our shared pleasures. And what a pleasure it has been to spend time with a group of writers and readers who are talking about the things that matter most to us all. That alone is a very high honor. So thank you all.